If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. Also hit the notification bell so that whenever you upload a new video, you are notified. In this video, we'll be talking about LAPSSET, which we say it's at Crossroads. Whereas Kenya's most ambitious corridor, where does it stand? More than a decade ago, the LAPSSET Corridor, which is Lamu Port, South Sudan, Ethiopia transport corridor. This corridor was sold to Kenyans not merely as an infrastructure project, but as a bold reimagining of the country's economic geography. It promised to redraw trade routes, unlock north, and place Kenya at heart of a new regional logistics stretching from Indian Ocean to the interior of East Africa. Today, however, LAPSSET tells a more complex story, not of a failure or not of but as faced the reality. Some parts are real, working, and visible. Others remain unfinished, delayed, or still confined to feasibility studies. The program has moved, but not evenly, and not without cost. To understand where LAPSSET stands in 2025, one must look at each component individually and then ask a harder question. Has the corridor begun to function as a corridor, or it's still a connection of disconnected projects? Let's look at this program in context. The Lamu Port South Sudan Ethiopia Transport Corridor LAPSSET is a program flagship initiative under the Kenya Vision 2030. It was launched in 2012 to create a second transport and economic corridor alongside the Northern Corridor anchored on Mombasa. Its core components include a deep sea port at Lamu, highway and rail corridors linking Kenya to Ethiopia and South Sudan, oil pipelines and energy infrastructure, airports, resort cities, and special economic zones. The ambition was integration: sea, road, rail, energy, and urban development working as a single system. The first component, Lamu Port, which is the anchor that now exists. Lamu Port at Manda Bay is most tangible and advanced element of LAPSSET. The port is planned as a 32-berth deep water facility capable of handling large post-Panamax vessels. As of 2025, 3 berths were complete and operational, with container yards, navigation aids, and modern cargo handling equipment in place. The port has already handled international cargo, including Ethiopian imports, a key strategic objective of the corridor. From a program perspective, Lamu Port has crossed the most difficult threshold. It exists, it works, and it's open to regional users. However, its throughput remains limited by what happens beyond the port gates. At a port without efficient inland connectivity risks becoming an underutilized asset. The second component are the roads, the most active but still fragmented link. Road infrastructure is currently the most active connector between Lamu and the interior. This Lamu-Garissa-Isiolo road. This road is the principal land bridge between the port and northern Kenya. The government has committed to completing Lamu-Garissa section to bitumen standard, with completion targeted in the 2025 window. The road has already enabled cargo movement from Lamu inland, serving as a proof of concept of the corridor. However, challenges persist. Flood damage has affected key sections, increasing maintenance and rehabilitation cost. Land acquisition and compensation disputes have slowed progress and generated litigation. Full corridor continued toward Ethiopia and South Sudan remains incomplete. From a corridor logic standpoint, the roads are functional but not yet seamless. Let's now move on to railway component, which is the missing backbone. Perhaps the most conceptual gap in LAPSSET today is the railway component. The original plan was visioned for a standard gauge railway from Lamu to Isiolo and then branched to Addis Ababa and as well as Juba. As of 2025, the railway remains in the planning and pre-construction stages. No track has been laid. Financing arrangements are still being negotiated. This matters because rail, not roads, is what transformed the corridor from a transport route into high volume, low cost logistics system. Without rail, LAPSSET operates below its intended economic efficiency. The third component, we have the oil pipelines, the energy infrastructure. we call it a vision without execution. Energy infrastructure was meant to cornerstone or be a cornerstone of the LAPSSET Corridor. A crude oil pipeline from South Sudan to Turkana and then onward to Lamu. A refined products pipeline to Ethiopia, refinery at the coast. Today, these components remain conceptual or at feasibility study. No pipeline construction is underway. Regional geopolitics, oil market shift, and financing complexity have slowed momentum. As a result, LAPSSET energy dimension, once central to its justification, has become its most uncertain pillar. Then we have the third component, which include airports, resort cities, and its special economic zones. These are long-term bets. LAPSSET also includes new international airports in Lamu, Isiolo, and Turkana, resort cities and special economic zones, as well as industrial and logistic hubs. Progress here is limited to land identification and acquisition, preliminary planning, and costing. These components are capital intensive and depend heavily on the success of the transport backbone. For now, they remain future multipliers rather than present drivers. Let's look at the issues of security and governance, which are these quieter or quiet enablers. Security concerns once threatened derail LAPSSET entirely. Government deployment of multi-agency security operations, including Operation Amani Boni, has significantly stabilized construction zones. At the institutional level, LAPSSET Corridor Development Authority continues to coordinate implementation through, although governance reforms and structural decisions signal an effort to streamline the oversight. These behind-the-scenes elements rarely make headlines, but they determine whether infrastructure survives beyond the blueprint stage. Where does this leave LAPSSET today? In practical terms, LAPSSET is no longer theoretical, but it's not yet fully integrated corridor. It has transitioned to a phased infrastructure program with progress concentrated in Lamu Port and priority road segment. It is lagging in rail, energy infrastructure, as well as urban industrial system. In conclusion, you can say that this is a corridor still being decided. LAPSSET today stands at defining moment, not at the start, and not yet at maturity. Its port is open. Its roads are advancing. Its security arrangements environment is being improved. But true to its economic power, rail-driven logistics, energy export, and corridor-wide integration remains unrealized. The question facing Kenya is no longer whether LAPSSET should exist, but whether the country can complete the hard, expensive, and politically complex build of phase that turns isolated infrastructure into functioning economic system. If Kenya sustains investment, resolves land and governance challenges, and secures regional buy-in, LAPSSET can still become the corridor that reshapes East Africa's trade map. If not, it risks becoming a powerful port at the edge of unfinished promise. So thank you for reaching this far. If this is your first time here, please consider subscribing to this channel. You can also watch other videos that we have made on this program, and as well as other projects in East Africa and Africa at large. Thank you.